The biggest challenge that most enterprises face with unstructured data is the fact that there's too much of it and they don't know what to make sense out of it. So in the past, most companies held on to their data for the longest time. Now they're running into the problem of having too much data and they don't know what to delete and what to keep. And out of the data that they kept, they don't know what sense to make out of it. So raw data, which is redundant, obsolete, or trivial data, is something that might be overwhelming to a lot of enterprises out there. The reason is there's so much of it being created every day, especially now with Gen AI. The problem with all three, redundant explains for itself, a lot of duplicates, you have multiple copies of the same information, obsolete, old data that's no longer relevant, as well as trivial, which really provides no value. All this now adds up to a lot of storage, which in the cloud especially costs a lot of money. A lot of enterprises are struggling because of the cost associated with holding on to so much raw data. What they can do is try to identify what information is considered to be raw data, what information is actually necessary for them to keep. And once that identification is complete, you can use some type of software or other services to get rid of all the raw data that you don't need. In-place management is where you can do information governance without creating copies of your actual files. So you can have multiple data sources and they're all linked in to one place, and you can manage the retention, the different policies, lexical policies, etc., all in one place without creating any copies. The reason why you would want to do this is because, especially with the data storage options becoming so expensive nowadays, and the movement of data creating a lot of unnecessary network traffic and cost associated with it, you have the option to keep them where they are, run its life cycle course where they exist, and get the relevant data that you need out of it without having to create copies. That's a very good question. When it comes to data governance, there are bits and pieces that you have to do yourself, and that will be all the policies that surround the data governance aspect, as well as any type of identification of important data that is relevant to you. However, the infrastructure is the part where you may keep it in-house on-prem, or you can decide to move it to the cloud. Now, personal recommendation would be if you have a very good network person, DBA, and a storage guy, you're pretty much good to go. However, managing that team is always very difficult. So there are vendors out there who will take on that task on your behalf and provide different types of managed services for your infrastructure needs. In my personal experience, the times when we had to use custom tools or when we had to actually build tools ourselves, that is outside of the actual software. And that was when we had to migrate new clients from their legacy systems into ours. Instead of having them export and then import the data in some type of file such as EMLs or PSTs, what we do is we would directly connect into their legacy databases as well as storage devices and be able to read out directly and ingest it into our own. Trends in information governance. Unless there are changes that happen in policies or legal areas, we won't see these trends picking up anytime soon. However, the trends that we will see very, very soon is the amount of data that's being created. Because of Gen AI, because of a lot of data that's being perceived as cheap to store, companies are fighting with a lot of data. How they're going to govern them, how they're going to make sense out of them, how they're going to look and find what they actually need is going to be the next turn of events. Now, you can save them all you want, but searching across them, doing unions, diffs, or even intersects between different search criteria, that will be the future.